2 weeks ago, I struck upon something that resembled genius. Things had been a blur recently: work, school rushes, bills, shopping trips, and I wasn't sure that my wife and I had had a chance to stop and take a breath, much less spend real time together. So, I had to make it a memorable occasion, take her out for a night. No kids, no work, just us reconnecting. The idea began to take shape in my head, and briskly it was planned out. My parents live around an hour and a half away and love it when the kids visit. I rang them up, introduced the concept, and they were sold instantly. The children were looking forward, too. A weekend with grandparents was always an adventure for them. I had to wake up early on plan day and prepare the kids, and my wife didn't know what I was doing. She assumed I was simply dropping the kids off at my parents' house for the day, as I'd done several times before. And I had some excitement as I filled up the car. It was the first time I'd ever managed something sweet and romantic. Usually when I visit my parents, I take the day off. I visit them, meet them, have a meal, and return home in the evening. But this time was different. I wanted to pick up the kids and return home as soon as possible to get ready for the surprise evening. I had made reservations for a nice restaurant, one of those places you always talk about but never go. I even planned to take him to 2 bars afterwards for drinks. It was going to be awesome. The road to my parents' house was easy and uneventful. The children babbled in the back seat, discussing their plans for the weekend. Once there, I spent a couple minutes catching up with my parents and then hit the road again. It was after midnight when I arrived back at our neighborhood. I was done earlier and really pleased with myself. When I pulled onto our street, I saw a truck parked outside of our home. It was not a car I knew. I thought it was a contractor or a courier, but nobody was in the area. But then I thought, it must be someone out on the streets. People drove up to our home on a regular basis. It wasn't unusual. Yet something about it came back to me. Instead of pulling into the driveway as I always do, I pulled a few houses down. I decided it would be fun to sneak into the house and shock my wife. I could picture her on the couch, texting or watching TV, and how surprised she would be to see me back so soon. That thought puffed me up as I made my way toward the house. I came in through the basement door and stayed quiet. As soon as I walked in, I heard sounds upstairs. I thought initially it could be just the television or some kind of music, but the sounds got more distinct as I stood there listening. They were intimate. I froze. I felt my heart race, and a million things were coming to my mind. Was she alone? Was she with someone? That could not be true, of course. I shook the thought away. I thought for a moment about walking out of the house and in through the garage to let her know I was home. But then there was a voice of a man. My stomach turned. It was unmistakable. There was a man in my apartment. My legs were lead, and I was on the ground, frozen in my seat with the sounds I heard. My head was racing to figure out what had just happened. Who was this man? Why was he in my home? And what was he doing with my wife? The answers were obvious, but I refused to believe them. I wanted to try for myself. Slying as I could, I slid upstairs. Each step seemed heavier than the last, as if something was trying to pull me back. The door at the top of the staircase was open, and all I could hear was the sound. It was obvious now. There was no denial about it. My wife had a partner, and not in casual conversation. I wanted to throw myself into the room and face them, but I held back. I was not prepared to take what I could find. Instead, I reached for my phone, shaking so bad I could hardly lift it. I opened the camera app and tilted the phone around the door corner, looking toward the living room. The screen gave me everything I wanted to know. My wife was married to a man I had never met. They were sleeping on the couch and completely unaware of my presence. I began filming, my mind yelling for me to do something, but my body wouldn't move. Just stood there, staring at the screen, as if I'd had my feet ripped off. It was a matter of minutes, but it felt like forever. After some time, my wife stood up and mentioned going to the bedroom. She was chased by the man, and I heard her say, "We still have some time." Those words came to me like a knife. When they were upstairs, I entered the living room. My gaze immediately turned to the man's pants, folded on the floor. His purse had popped out of a pocket. I took it, opened it, and photographed his driver's license. Now I had his name and address. I still didn't know who he was or how my wife knew him, but at least I had a starting point. I exited the house the same way as I had entered and jumped into my car. Once I closed the door, I broke down. My eyes filled with tears as I tried to process what I just witnessed. It was as if my world had shuddered to pieces. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my wife was a lie. I sat in my car for at least 30 minutes, unable to think. I viewed the clip I'd taped, in part to see if it was real, and in part to kick myself. Each moment of it put a knife in my heart. How did we end up here? I kept thinking, what did I do wrong? But eventually, I could stop myself and make a plan. I took my place in the house again, as if I had just come home to shock her. I pulled into the driveway, opened the garage, and made a lot of noise going in. I just needed her to know I was there. She had come into the house in a robe and seemed shocked. "Why are you at home so early?" she blurted in a slightly sappy tone. I explained my evening plans to her, and she smirked excitedly. She brought us both a glass of wine and advised we pre-game a little before heading out. I saw him as we sat in the living room. The man was crawling the basement stairs, trying to elude us. I stood frozen, no idea what to do. A part of me just wanted to hit him, shout and scream and say something. Yet another part of me just wanted to make it look like none of this was going on. I let him go. I've been a wreck ever since that day. I looped the video, forcing myself to. She has noticed something is wrong and continues to ask me if I am okay. I don't know what to say to her. I have this sense that my world has crumbled and I do not know how to put it back together.